Sometimes, family doesn't break apart because of distance, but because of greed. And when money is involved, you see who truly cares for you. My name is Wallace Brenner, I'm 76 years old, and this is the story of how my children tried to erase me before Christmas, only to be erased from my will instead. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let me know where and which time you're watching this story in the comments below. I love seeing your responses. You know, when you get to my age, you think you know your family. You think 40 years of working double shifts at the steel mill, coming home with burned hands and aching bones, all for them, you think that means something. You think love is real when your kids hug you and say, "Thanks, Dad," every Christmas when you hand them those fat envelopes full of cash. Boy, was I wrong. My house sits on Maple Street, a big old Victorian I bought in 1978 for $32,000. Today, it's worth close to $400,000. 3 stories, 5 bedrooms, wraparound porch, and a garage bigger than most people's first apartments. I raised 3 kids in that house. Michael, 52, my oldest, always was the smart one, became some big-shot accountant. Then there's Sarah, 49, works at the bank downtown, divorced twice, always asking for money. And my baby, Danny, 45, who never could hold a job longer than 6 months. After my wife Margaret died 4 years ago, that house felt too big, too quiet. But it was home. Every creaky floorboard, every paint chip, it was mine. I earned it with sweat and blood, working 12-hour days for 4 decades. The mortgage was paid off 20 years ago. No debt, just pure ownership. The kids started visiting more after Margaret passed. At first, I thought, how nice, they're checking on old Dad. Michael would bring his wife Linda and their twin boys, good kids, about 12 years old now. Sarah would show up with casseroles and complaints about her ex-husband's alimony. Danny would come by asking to borrow money, which we both knew he'd never pay back. But something changed this past summer. The visits got more frequent, but different. They'd walk through the house, talking in whispers. Making comments about the outdated kitchen, the old furniture, how the place needs work. Michael started bringing up stuff about property values and smart investments. Sarah kept mentioning how hard it must be for me to maintain such a big place alone. I'm old, not stupid. I could smell what they were cooking. The breaking point came on November 15th. I remember the date because it was Margaret's birthday, 4 years gone, and I was sitting in my kitchen, looking at her empty chair, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. That's when I heard them. I'd gone upstairs to get Margaret's photo album. Sometimes looking at our old pictures helps with the loneliness. But when I got to the top of the stairs, I heard voices in the kitchen below. My kids didn't know I was up there. The old house has thin floors, and sound carries. Michael was talking. "Look, we can't keep waiting around. Dad's 76, he could go any time. But he could also live another 10 years, and this house is just sitting here, getting more valuable every day." "What are you saying?" That was Sarah. "I'm saying we need to be practical. There's a nice assisted living place on Elm Street. Clean, safe, they handle all the medications. Dad would probably be happier there, around people his own age." Danny laughed, that bitter laugh he's had since he was a teenager. "Happier? Come on, Mike. Just say it, you want the house." "We all want what's best for the family," Michael said, his voice getting sharp. "This house could sell for 400 grand, maybe more. Split 3 ways, that's enough for each of us to pay off some serious debts. My boys need college funds. Sarah's got her financial situation. And you, Danny, you could finally get that business loan you're always talking about." My hands were shaking as I held Margaret's photo. These were my children. My blood. Talking about selling my home like I was already dead. But Sarah's next words nearly stopped my heart. "What if Dad says no? He's stubborn, you know how he gets about the house." "Then we make the decision for him," Michael said, cold as winter steel. "Power of attorney. We can claim he's not capable of making sound financial decisions. Living alone at his age, forgetting things." "Is he forgetting things?" Danny asked. "He will be, if that's what it takes." The silence that followed felt like a knife in my chest. Then Sarah spoke up. "There's something else. I talked to a friend who works in elder care law. If we can get Dad declared incompetent, we can make all his financial decisions. The house, his savings, everything. How much does he have saved up? Danny asked. Michael rustled some papers. I've been handling his taxes. Between his pension, Social Security, and what he's got in savings and CDs, we're looking at about $600,000 total, plus the house. I nearly dropped the photo album. $600,000. I knew I'd been careful with money, but hearing it said out loud like that, like I was a prize cow they were planning to butcher. Jesus, Danny whispered. Almost $1 million total. Split 3 ways, Sarah added quickly. Right. But we need to move fast, Michael said. The holidays are coming. Dad always gets sentimental around Christmas, starts talking about legacy and keeping the house in the family. We can't let him get all emotional and do something stupid with his money. Like what? Sarah asked. Like leaving it to that godson of his. Kevin. You know how Dad talks about him. Kevin calls me every week, Kevin takes me to my doctor appointments, Kevin this, Kevin that. If Dad starts feeling grateful instead of guilty, we could lose everything. My godson Kevin. Margaret's sister's boy, 38 years old now. Lost his parents in a car crash when he was 25, and I stepped in as the closest thing to a father he had left. Kevin calls me every Tuesday and Friday, without fail. Takes me grocery shopping, drives me to doctor appointments, fixes things around the house that need fixing. Never asks for money, never hints around about inheritance. Just shows up because he cares. Unlike my own children, apparently. So what's the timeline? Danny asked. Michael's voice was all business now. I'm thinking right after Thanksgiving. We sit Dad down, tell him we're worried about his safety, his health, his ability to manage his affairs. We've already picked out the facility, Sunset Manor on Elm Street. It's nice enough, and it's only $1,200 a month. Much cheaper than maintaining the house. $1,200 a month. Sarah sounded surprised. That's the beauty of it, Michael said. His Social Security and pension will cover the nursing home costs. His savings and the house sale, that's pure profit for us. What if he fights us? Danny asked. Then we use the incompetency angle. I've been documenting things, how he sometimes repeats stories, how he's gotten a little slower getting around. Build a case that he's not capable of living independently. They were quiet for a moment. Then Sarah spoke. When do we tell him? December 1st. Give him time to adjust to the idea before Christmas. Once he's settled in the facility, we put the house on the market. With the way prices are going, we could close by February. Think he'll be okay? Danny asked, and for a second, I thought maybe one of my kids still had a heart. But Michael crushed that hope. He's 76, Danny. How much time does he really have left? A year, maybe 2 if we're unlucky. The point is to secure our futures while we can. While we can, Sarah repeated. You know, it's actually kind of a relief. I've been stressed about money for months. This will solve everything. For all of us, Michael agreed. Dad lived his life, worked his job, raised his family. Now it's time for him to step aside and let us take care of business. I heard chairs scraping, footsteps moving around. They were getting ready to leave. In a few minutes, they'd call up the stairs, "Bye, Dad. Love you," like they always did. Like they hadn't just planned to steal my life, my home, my dignity. Like they hadn't just broken my heart into a million pieces. I stayed upstairs until I heard their cars pull away. Then I sat down on my bed, the bed I'd shared with Margaret for 39 years, and I cried like I hadn't cried since her funeral. But tears don't solve problems. And I had a big problem. The next morning, I called Kevin. Can you come by today? I need to talk to somebody I trust. Kevin showed up an hour later with coffee and donuts from Murphy's Bakery downtown. He took one look at my face and set the bag down. What's wrong, Uncle Wallace? I told him everything. Every word I'd heard, every plan they'd made. Kevin's face got redder and redder as I talked. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Those bastards, he finally said, then caught himself. Sorry, I know they're your kids, but... No, you're right. That's exactly what they are. I felt something hardening in my chest, like steel cooling in the mill. Kevin, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Anything, Uncle Wallace. If something happened to me, if I died tomorrow, would you take care of the house? Margaret's garden, the apple tree we planted when Sarah was born, all of it. Kevin's eyes got wide. Of course I would. This place is like home to me. But you're not going anywhere soon, right? I'm 76, son. Could be tomorrow, could be 10 years. But I want to make sure the people who love this place are the ones who get it. I called my lawyer that afternoon. Bob Henderson, been handling my legal stuff for 20 years. Good man, honest, doesn't try to talk you into things you don't need. Bob, I need to change my will. All of it. Wallace, that's a big decision. You sure you want to do this over the phone? I'm sure. Can you come by tomorrow? I'll explain everything then. Bob showed up the next day with his briefcase and his reading glasses. I told him the whole story, same as I'd told Kevin. Bob shook his head when I finished. I've seen this before, Wallace. More often than you'd think. Money makes people do terrible things, even to family. Especially to family, I said. So here's what I want to do. I laid it out for him. Everything, the house, the savings accounts, the CDs, my life insurance policy, even my car, all of it would go to Kevin. My children would get exactly what they'd planned to give me in that nursing home, nothing. You might want to think about this for a few days, Bob suggested. Make sure you're not acting out of anger. Bob, I've had 40 years to think about what kind of people I raised. Last week just confirmed what I should have seen long ago. He drew up the papers. 3 copies, one for him, one for me, one for Kevin. All legal, all ironclad. Kevin would get everything, with one condition: he had to maintain Margaret's garden and keep the house in the family. What about your grandchildren? Bob asked. Michael's boys. I thought about that. Those kids were innocent in all this. Set up education trusts for the grandkids. $50,000 each, but Michael can't touch it. The money goes directly to whatever colleges they choose. That's generous. Those boys didn't choose their father. They shouldn't suffer for his greed. We signed everything on November 28th, 3 days before my children's deadline to sit me down and discuss my future. But I wasn't done. I called Sunset Manor on Elm Street, the place Michael had picked out for me. Asked for a tour, told them my children were exploring options for my care. The place was adequate. Clean, safe, boring as watching paint dry. Smelled like disinfectant and old people. The rooms were tiny, barely space for a bed, a chair, and a small dresser. The common area had a TV that was always too loud and puzzle tables where residents sat staring into space. How much does this cost? I asked the director, Mrs. Patterson. For the level of care you'd need, about $1,200 a month, plus extras for medications, activities, special meals. Maybe $1,400 total. $1,400 a month. For this. While my kids split nearly $1 million. Do many residents have visitors? I asked. Mrs. Patterson's smile got a little sad. Some do, especially at first. But visits tend to drop off after a while. Family gets busy, you know. I knew. I bet Michael, Sarah, and Danny would visit twice, once to drop me off, once to make sure I was settled. After that, I'd be out of sight, out of mind, waiting to die in a room the size of my current closet. I drove home and made another phone call. Michael. It's Dad. Can you 3 come by this weekend? I want to talk to you about something important. Sure, Dad. Everything okay? Oh, everything's fine. Just some things I want to discuss before Christmas. Family things. I could hear the excitement in his voice. He probably thought I was going to hand over power of attorney voluntarily, make their job easier. Absolutely. How about Sunday afternoon? Perfect. Come around 1 o'clock. I'll make lunch. Sunday, December 1st. Their deadline day. How perfect. That Saturday, I spent the day with Kevin. We went through the house together, and I told him stories about every room, every piece of furniture, every family photo on the walls. Margaret picked out that wallpaper in the dining room, I said, running my hand along the faded roses. Took us 3 weekends to hang it right. She was so proud of how it turned out. I remember, Kevin said quietly. She made me help her rearrange the furniture afterward to show it off better. The apple tree in the backyard, we planted that when Sarah was born. Margaret said every child should have a tree to climb. I'll take care of it, Kevin promised. All of it. Sunday morning, I got up early and made a big breakfast, eggs, bacon, hash browns, the works. Margaret always said the best conversations happened over good food. Then I went to my bedroom and opened the safe behind Margaret's portrait. Inside were the new will documents, some cash, and the original deed to the house. But there was something else I'd forgotten about. A letter Margaret had written to the kids before she died. She'd been sick for 6 months, and toward the end, when she knew she wasn't getting better, she'd written letters to each of them. I'd been too heartbroken to give them out after the funeral. Reading them now, 4 years later, I saw why Margaret had been the better parent. Her letters were full of love, advice, hopes for their futures. She reminded each of them about family values, about taking care of each other, about remembering that money wasn't everything. She'd have been heartbroken to hear what I'd heard that night. At exactly 1 o'clock, 3 cars pulled into my driveway. Michael in his expensive sedan, Sarah in her practical SUV, Danny in his beat-up pickup truck. They came to the front door together, which struck me as odd. Usually they arrived separately, left separately, barely talked to each other. Today they were a united front. "Hi, Dad." Sarah kissed my cheek. "Something smells good." "Just finished lunch. Come on in." We sat around the dining room table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of family meals, where I'd helped with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and graduations. The irony wasn't lost on me. "So," Michael said, cutting into his sandwich, "what did you want to talk about?" I took a bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. "Well, I've been thinking about the future. About getting older, about what happens next." They exchanged glances. Sarah leaned forward slightly. "We've been thinking about that too, Dad. We worry about you, living in this big house all alone. Do you now?" I kept my voice neutral. "What kind of worries?" "Safety, mainly," Michael said. "What if you fell down the stairs? What if you had a medical emergency and no one was here to help?" "I see. And what do you think I should do about these concerns?" Danny spoke up. "We've been looking into some options. Nice places where you could have people around, medical staff nearby, activities to keep you busy." "Assisted living," Sarah added quickly. "Not nursing homes, those are depressing. Assisted living is different. More like a community." "A community." I nodded thoughtfully. "And where is this community?" "There's a beautiful place on Elm Street," Michael said. "Sunset Manor. We took a tour last week. Clean, friendly staff, reasonable prices." "How reasonable?" "About $1,200 a month, give or take." "Well within your budget." "I see. And what would happen to this house while I'm living in this community?" Another round of glances. Michael cleared his throat. "Well, Dad, maintaining a house this size is expensive. Property taxes, utilities, repairs, insurance, it all adds up. It would make more financial sense to sell it and put that money toward your care." "Financial sense," I repeated. "For whom?" "For you, of course," Sarah said quickly. "And for your peace of mind, knowing your affairs are in order." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. Gave them a moment to think they were winning. "You know," I said, coming back to the table, "it's funny. The 3 of you haven't been this united about anything since you were kids. Usually, Michael, you think Sarah spends too much money. Sarah, you think Danny's irresponsible. Danny, you think Michael's uptight. But here you are, all agreeing that I should sell my house and move into assisted living." "Dad, we're just worried about you," Sarah said. "Are you?" Because I have to tell you, your concern is touching. Especially since it comes so soon after I overheard an interesting conversation in my own kitchen. The room went dead quiet. 3 faces went white as fresh snow. What conversation? Michael asked, but his voice cracked on the words. I sat back down and looked at each of them, really looked at them. These were my children. I'd changed their diapers, walked the floor with them when they were sick, taught them to ride bikes and tie shoes and drive cars. I'd worked overtime to pay for school clothes and Christmas presents and graduation parties. And they were planning to throw me away like an old newspaper. The conversation where you discussed my incompetency. My net worth. The timeline for getting me committed so you could split nearly $1 million 3 ways. Sarah started to say something, but I held up my hand. The conversation where you joked about me not making it to New Year's. Where you planned to use my Social Security to pay for my care while you pocketed everything else. Michael's face went from white to red. Dad, if you heard something out of context. Context. I stood up again, and my voice got louder. What context makes it acceptable to plan your father's life around your own greed? What context makes it okay to discuss selling his home while he's still living in it? You're getting upset, Danny said. Maybe you should sit down. Don't you dare tell me to sit down in my. We just want what's best. What's best for who? You want to stuff me in a $1,200 room while you live in $400,000 comfort. You want to take my life savings while I eat institutional food and watch TV with strangers. I walked to the mantelpiece and picked up a family photo, Christmas morning, 1995. The kids were young adults then, still living at home, still hugging me when I handed out presents. Still pretending to love their old men. Do you know what your mother said to me before she died? I asked, my voice getting quiet again. She said, take care of our babies, Wallace. They'll take care of you when you're old. The crying got louder. She was wrong about that second part, wasn't she? I walked to my desk and pulled out the manila envelope Bob Henderson had prepared. Michael, you're an accountant. You understand legal documents. Sarah, you work at a bank. You understand financial transactions. Danny, you may not be the brightest bulb in the box, but you're not stupid. I slid the envelope across the table. These are copies of my new will. Signed, witnessed, and filed with my attorney. You might want to take a look. Michael's hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the first page, then went wide. He flipped to the second page, the third page. What does it say? Sarah asked. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. He left everything to Kevin. Everything. The house, the savings, the life insurance, the car. Everything. Danny grabbed the papers. That can't be legal. We're his children. It's perfectly legal, I said. I'm of sound mind, no one coerced me, and I have the right to leave my property to whoever I choose. Sarah was hyperventilating. Dad, you can't do this. We're your family. Are you? Because family doesn't plot to have their father declared incompetent. Family doesn't discuss his death like it's a business opportunity. We didn't mean it like that, Michael said. How did you mean it, Michael? Because from where I was standing, it sounded like you 3 were planning to steal everything I worked for and leave me to die alone in a nursing home. We wouldn't have left you alone, Sarah sobbed. When's the last time any of you visited me just to visit? Not to ask for money, not to check on the house, not because it was a holiday. When's the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Silence. I'll tell you when Kevin last called. Friday night. He calls every Tuesday and Friday. He took me grocery shopping yesterday. He fixed my kitchen faucet last month. He remembers Margaret's birthday, your mother's birthday, every year. Kevin's not even related to us. Danny exploded. No, he's not. But he acts like family. You 3 act like vultures. I walked to the window and looked out at Margaret's garden. Even in December, you could see the care Kevin put into maintaining it. The rose bushes were properly trimmed for winter, the flower beds were clean of weeds, the apple tree was healthy and strong. There is one thing you'll inherit, I said without turning around. What? Michael asked. Debt. I've been thinking about those medical bills from your mother's last year. The ones I paid out of pocket because insurance wouldn't cover everything. Turns out I was too generous. According to my records, you each owe me about $15,000 for your shares of her care. What are you talking about? Sarah demanded. I turned back to face them. I paid for everything, the experimental treatments, the private nurses, the special equipment. I figured it was my job as her husband. But you were her children too. You should have contributed. You never asked us to pay anything. Danny said. I never asked Kevin to pay anything either, but he sent me money every month anyway. $200, like clockwork, to help with her medical expenses. Never missed a payment. That was true. Kevin had insisted on helping with Margaret's care, even though I'd told him it wasn't necessary. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. You three are going to leave my house. You're going to stop planning my life around your bank accounts. And you're going to think about what kind of people you've become. Dad, please, Sarah begged. We can fix this. We can make it right. How? How do you fix planning to have your own father committed? How do you make that right? We were scared, Michael said. Scared of what would happen to you, scared of making the wrong decisions. Scared of missing out on your inheritance, you mean? Dad, I know how it sounded, but... It sounded like you three couldn't wait for me to die. It sounded like you'd already divided up my belongings. It sounded like you saw me as a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. I walked to the front door and opened it. I think you should leave now. Dad, we're your children, Sarah pleaded. My children would never do what you did. My children would visit because they wanted to see me, not because they wanted to inventory my furniture. My children would worry about my happiness, not my competency hearing. They gathered up the wallpapers, their coats, their purses. At the door, Michael turned back. Dad, what about Christmas? What about our kids? Your kids, my grandchildren, will be fine. I've set up education trusts for them. The money goes directly to whatever colleges they choose, and you can't touch it. And Christmas. Kevin and I are going to have a quiet Christmas here at home. You three can have Christmas wherever you'd like. Just not here. Dad, please don't do this, Danny said. We're sorry. We made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to see me as a bank account instead of a person. You chose to plan my life around your convenience. You chose to discuss my death like it was a business transaction. We're your family. Sarah cried. No, I said quietly. Kevin's my family. He's the one who calls, who visits, who cares whether I'm happy or just existing. You three are DNA donors who show up when you need money. I started to close the door, then stopped. Oh, and about that assisted living place on Elm Street. I visited it. $1,400 a month for a room the size of a closet and food that tastes like cardboard. You three really thought that was good enough for your old men, didn't you? I closed the door and locked it. Watched through the window as they stood on my porch arguing with each other. Watched them get in their separate cars and drive away. Then I called Kevin. How did it go? He asked. About like you'd expect. They're not taking it well. I'm sorry, Uncle Wallace. I know they're your kids, and this has to hurt. It does. But not as much as finding out what they really thought of me. What happens now? Now we get ready for Christmas. Just you and me and Margaret's apple pie recipe. The way Christmas should be, with family who actually wants to be here. That was 3 weeks ago. Christmas morning, Kevin came over with presents, nothing fancy, just thoughtful things. A new photo album for pictures of Margaret. A book about steel mill history. A warm sweater in my favorite color. We cooked breakfast together, walked through Margaret's garden, sat by the fire and talked about old times. It was the best Christmas I'd had since Margaret died. Around noon, a car pulled into the driveway. Michael's car. Kevin looked at me. Want me to handle this? No. I'll talk to him. Michael came to the door alone. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Dad. Can we talk? I opened the door but didn't invite him in. What do you want, Michael? I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. What we did, what we said, it was wrong. It was horrible. I don't know what got into us. Greed got into you. Plain and simple. You're right. And I'm sorry. We all are. Where are Sarah and Danny? Home with their families. We thought it might be better if I came alone. I studied his face. He looked sincere, but then again, he'd looked sincere 3 weeks ago when he was planning to have me committed. What do you want, Michael? I want to make this right. I want my father back. Your father was here 3 weeks ago when you decided he was incompetent and needed to be warehoused. Dad, please. I know I screwed up. We all did. But you're our father. We love you. Do you? Or do you love what I can give you? Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Smaller. I don't know anymore. I used to know, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what was important. The money, the house, the inheritance, it became more important than you. And that's unforgivable. Yes, it is. But I'm asking you to forgive me anyway. I looked back at Kevin, who was pretending to read a magazine but obviously listening to every word. Then I looked at Michael, really looked at him. He was 52 years old, graying at the temples, lines around his eyes. When had he gotten so old? When had I? Michael, if I forgive you, what changes? Do you start visiting because you want to see me, or because you want to get back in the will? Do you call because you're thinking about me, or because you're thinking about the inheritance? I don't know, he said honestly. I wish I could promise you it would only be about wanting to see you, but I've been thinking about money for so long, I don't know how to think about anything else. At least you're honest about it. Dad, I want to try. I want to be the son you raised me to be, not the person I became. But I need help. I need you to show me how. I thought about Margaret, about what she would want. I thought about 40 years of working to provide for these kids, about all the bedtime stories and little league games and school plays. I thought about the good times, before money became more important than love. The will stands, I said finally. Kevin gets everything. That's not changing. Michael nodded. I understand. But if you want to try, really try, to be a son instead of an heir, you can come by next Sunday for dinner. Bring your boys. Let them meet their grandfather as a person, not a bank account. And Sarah and Danny? They can make their own apologies if they want to try. But Michael, I want you to understand something. This isn't about getting back in my good graces so you can inherit money. There is no money for you to inherit. This is about whether we can salvage some kind of relationship before I die. I understand. Do you? Because if I hear even a hint that you're being nice to me because you think I might change my mind about the will, this conversation ends forever. I understand. Then we'll see you Sunday. 1 o'clock. And Michael. Yes, Dad. Bring flowers for your mother's grave. We'll visit her together after dinner. He started crying then. Right there on my front porch, this 52-year-old man broke down like a child. I miss her so much, he sobbed. And I miss you. I miss being your son. Then be my son, I said. Not my heir. Not my accountant. My son. I closed the door and went back to Kevin, who was grinning from ear to ear. Think he means it? Kevin asked. Maybe. People can change, even at his age. Even at mine. And if he doesn't, then at least I'll know I tried. Margaret would want me to try. The funny thing is, I do feel lighter now. Not because my children might come back into my life, I'm not holding my breath on that. But because I finally stood up for myself. I finally said what needed to be said. For 40 years, I bent over backward to make their lives easier. I gave them money when they needed it, fixed their problems, bailed them out of bad decisions. I enabled them to see me as a resource instead of a person. But I'm done with that now. I'm 76 years old, and I finally learned to value myself the way I valued them. Kevin's been the son I needed, even though he's not my blood. He's shown me what real family looks like, not people who share DNA, but people who share love and respect and genuine care for each other's well-being. And that's worth more than all the money in all the banks in the world. You know what the best part of this whole story is? I'm not angry anymore. I was furious for a while, hurt and betrayed and bitter. But now I'm at peace. I've got a house I love, a godson who loves me, and enough money to live comfortably for whatever time I have left. I've got Margaret's garden to tend, her memories to cherish, and her apple tree that still produces the sweetest fruit every fall. My children wanted me gone before the holidays so they could have my stuff. Instead, they're gone from my will, and I'm still here, living my life on my terms. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at people who hurt you. Sometimes the best revenge is living well despite them. And at 76 years old, I'm finally learning how to do that. It's been half a year since that Christmas confrontation, and I thought you might want to know how things turned out. Michael did come to dinner that Sunday, and he's been coming every week since. He brings his boys, Tommy and Jake, and we're getting to know each other properly for the first time. Last month, I taught them how to change the oil in my car. Next week, we're building a treehouse in Margaret's apple tree. The funny thing is, once Michael stopped thinking about my money, he became a better son. He asks about my health because he cares, not because he's worried about his inheritance. He fixes things around the house because he wants to help, not because he's protecting his investment. Sarah came by in February. Took her 3 months to work up the courage, but she finally apologized. Really apologized. She's been coming by every other week, and last month she brought me some of Margaret's old recipes she'd found in her own recipe box. We spent an afternoon cooking together, first time we'd done that since she was 12 years old. Danny? Well, Danny's still Danny. He showed up once in March, asking if I'd reconsider the will. When I said no, he left angry and hasn't been back. Some people never learn. But here's the thing that surprised me most, I'm happier now than I've been since Margaret died. Not because my kids came back, though that's nice, but because I finally learned to value myself. Kevin's still my main heir, and that's not changing. He's earned it through years of genuine love and care. But having some of my children back in my life, on the right terms, has been a gift I wasn't expecting. Last week, I had dinner with Michael and his family, then Kevin came by later for our usual Friday visit. 3 generations sitting around the same table where I'd confronted my children 6 months ago. But this time, we were talking about baseball and school projects and Kevin's new girlfriend. Tommy, my older grandson, looked around the table and said, "Grandpa, our family's kind of mixed up, isn't it?" "How so?" I asked. "Well, Kevin's not really our uncle, but he acts like it. And you were mad at Dad for a while, but now you're not. And Mom says Aunt Sarah is trying to be better, but Uncle Danny is still being stubborn." Mixed-up families are often the best kind, I told him. Because everyone chooses to be there. Margaret would have loved hearing that. She always said the best families aren't just born, they're built. As for me, I'm 77 now, still living in my house on Maple Street, still tending Margaret's garden, still getting up every morning grateful for another day. The arthritis in my hands is getting worse, and I need reading glasses for everything now, but I'm not complaining. I've got people who love me for who I am, not what I can give them. I've got enough money to live comfortably without being a burden to anyone. And I've got the satisfaction of knowing that when I do finally join Margaret, the people I leave behind will take care of each other and remember me with genuine affection. You can't put a price on that kind of peace. So to anyone out there dealing with family drama, money problems, or people who take advantage of your generosity, remember this. You teach people how to treat you. And it's never too late to start demanding better. Stand up for yourself. Value your own worth. And surround yourself with people who see you as more than just what you can provide. Trust me, at 77, I can tell you it's the only way to live. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've got more stories about standing up for yourself, family drama, and learning life's lessons the hard way. Until next time, this is Wallace Brenner, reminding you that respect is earned, but self-respect is a choice. Make the right choice.